Red's all right.
Red is off, yes, but I can't make this start. It doesn't do anything.
Check. Check that.
It only says the appointed participant, which is us, so there may not be anybody to worry about it, but that's just making a,
Well, we'll turn the speaker on.
I would assume it can at least record sound, because it's not recording video. But I can't make the TV go on and off.
So I'm going to call the planning commission meeting to order for April 25th, 2024. We do not have a quorum. Our fourth member is on his way, but he's not going to be here for probably 20 minutes. So we're limited in what we're able to do. We can approve the minutes, and we can't do the minutes
So
either.
that's, I just thought about that, that's also a motion.
So-
Approval.
So we're gonna skip over. Yeah, we can't. The fourth person has to even be here for the presentation. The only thing we can do is open forum on action items. So are there any public comments related to the agenda? How about we see if there's any public comments that we would traditionally ask at the end of the meeting that's just public comments, not related to the agenda. Yes, sir.
Sally Johnson, Flash Hall, Circle, and Brook.
Can you say your address again? I'm sorry. I have to put it in the minutes.
5, Scarlet Oak Circle.
Thank you.
Question, has there been any movement or finalization of the Horton project?
The Horton project?
Yeah.
We haven't seen plans.
So no plans came in yet?
No.
Not for last year.
And there's no, so then therefore I can assume that there has been no finalization of the number of houses, the number of potential hookups for sewer or water, or any of that?
We have no idea if they're even planning to resubmit. We have no idea.
You haven't been here for almost a year and a half.
Thank you.
Last thing we told them was, don't ask for any waivers because the planning commission is not going to recommend waivers to the supervisor. I think
And
that's the
rework
last
the
thing we
plan.
were told.
Thank you.
Because they had not submitted a compliant plan yet.
And I'm sorry, can I back that up? Do you happen to know when the last time that something was submitted?
Oh, my gosh.
It was over a year ago. I believe it might have been November of 2022 because I was not raised at that meeting
Jen,
with them. I think that was the last time.
I believe, after a plan had come here, there may have been one additional submission for just the formal zoning review. But it still wasn't zoning compliant, but it never came here. But let me just see. I can see when our last letter on that project was.
Pretty much nothing in 23.
yeah, because we didn't have 3 or 4 meetings because of lack of agenda items.
So we're going to go back and rework the plan that we were not okay with the waivers. And that was in November of 2022.
Yeah,
I
I believe.
thought that they came back in to talk to you for something, but we
So-
never saw it.
It appears in November of 2023, we had received a partial resubmission. It wasn't a full package. It was reviewed just for zoning compliance by Technicon. There were still zoning deficiencies, and we have not seen anything come into the township since that letter was issued.
And I don't know this, I'm asking, and you may not know it, but I'm just going to ask. Is there any correlation how the sewer authority could know possibly what's expected in the new development?
They may have asked for capacity.
Yeah,
They could have a reservation.
the developers could have spoken with the sewer authority regarding their potential number of units to determine if there's adequate sewage capacity
Okay.
for it. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comments? So we have some subdivision and some zoning hearing items on the agenda, but we're going to have to leave.
It is. I have to do down like this, and then do this. The problem is that it's hard to replace. It's hard for me to review.
I guess from our standpoint, it was to approve it. Approving was not easy. Well, yeah, and then this one, just added underneath to it. So what can we do? Not. Because what the, because it needs to remain. Yeah, you know, it's just about the,
Keys to the commercial. Yeah, what I'm trying to do is have it closer down to the end. So the rest of it can be dry. Because there's no even if they stay around the ground, it's never unless they play with them at the end. Because they have two screens on top, and they have the screen inside. I mean, I do think this too. He's the one, right, he says he's not an engineer. But is there anything
When you're on there, probably give it to still fight with that authority. Sorry, yes. And we find out on the points list.
Yeah.
That's one reason why you don't work in that town. It's a great place to work. They're the engineers. Need some paperwork.
Yeah, just be, yeah, be one of the Levi's. Take one of their agendas. Just give them one copy of each thing that's there. Yeah.
Appreciate your comment.
I was going to come anyway afterward. They released the room after 6:30.
So we already called the meeting to order, so now we can move on to the action item first, which is to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2020. They're in our packet. If there are no additions or corrections, I guess for motion and second, please. A motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Last chance. All in favor of approving the minutes for February 22nd, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We already did open forum for action items, so we'll move on to subdivision and land development applications, the first of which is the Fisher Subdivision located on 941 Compass Road. Jen, you want to walk us through it,
Yeah.
please?
So this is the existing farm that the current Route 10 roadside market is on, along with other associated agricultural buildings, barns, a dwelling. It's currently approximately a 60 7-acre, 60-acre parcel to the property lines. They're looking to subdivide it to create one lot of about 23.9 acres, and the balance of the residual tract would be 45.57 acres. There's no proposed improvements or earth disturbances on the new lot. It will remain in agricultural use. Mike had a few comments just related to net lot area and things like that that they will need to comply with, but given the size of the lots. We don't anticipate an issue. And then, under the Saldo comments, it is a minor subdivision plan, so there's only limited sections that do apply. If they don't do all the pins or any other required improvements before recording, they will need to do an improvement security. Might ask them to label all existing buildings, specifically with the uses, particularly labeled roadside market.
So the rural occupations that we have are okay, so even if they subdivide, there's enough acreage for?
Yes, yeah, there's enough acreage for that. There's just some notes, any future development would need stormwater management, any changes in driveway would need a HOP permit in the future. They are requesting a non-building waiver for sewage planning, since there's no proposed development on the other lot. That goes before the township SEO, which is the health department first, but as part of your guys' recommendations and comments on this, we'd be looking for an authorization for Gary to sign that non-building waiver. Landscaping for minor subdivisions is at the discretion of the planning commission. You guys should weigh in if there's a need for any landscaping, on this property. So, no major issues with it. Again, just subdividing off a portion for agriculture. Nothing else to over the top with it. That's an existing one, kind of in the middle. That rectangle. That's a different one. That's also David Fisher, but that's for the zoning variance application. Yeah, we got two David Fisher things going on at the same time.
This one, 102. That's. Okay, I remember.
Yeah. So, the other lot will still have access to Route 10. Just looking to set that right off part of the farm there. Does anybody have any questions about the review letter, what they're looking to do, the sewage planning, non-building waiver, or any comments on the need for landscaping?
The lots there now, so if you're not building on it, then I don't see the need for landscaping. It's just going to continue with it.
Correct.
If
Yeah,
we're building,
it's
there
good.
might be something different.
Right. Residents can plan to continue to stay in agricultural use at the time. So. Any other comments? If not, if you're inclined, we'll be looking for an authorization, a motion for an authorization for Gary to sign the non-building waiver for sewage planning once it is approved by the health department as the township SEO. And secondly, would be a motion to recommend to the supervisors that they were to grant conditional final plan approval for the subdivision plan contingent upon the Technicon April 12th, 2024 letter.
All right, so We'll take the non-building waiver first, motion. Yeah, all in favor? Any questions or comments? All in favor? All right. And the next action item would be to recommend to the supervisors conditional final plan approval conditioned on April 12, 2022, Technicon Enterprises letter. A motion? Second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Who made that motion?
Our next subdivision land development item is Amos Esch, on Beaver Road.
Hello, good evening. My name is John Williamson. I'm with Team Ag. And Team Ag said with Amos Esch. He's proposing to build a wood shop on his property. And we were here several months ago because he requested several variances from the zoning hearing board and they were granted. And now we're submitting a minor land development plan. We're requesting tonight approval of, I guess, 7 different waivers, and also recommending requesting a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for conditional approval based on the letter that came from. So should I go through the waiver?
Yeah, so why don't you go through the waivers? Like a waiver request.
In the waiver request, there's a letter sent by the engineer, Randall Hoover, April 25th. So, the first, you need to look at the property first, plan. It's on Beaver Dam Road. There's it's next to Delhi Community. It's a long, narrow lot. There's a shared driveway and there's an easement with that goes along the boundary of the property and then comes into his house and barn, and he's proposing to build this new wood shop on that using the same driveway and everything. So the first waiver we're requesting is from section 22-615.1F, we're paving a shared driveway. This would be minimal traffic. After the wood shop, there won't be, at current, the plan is just using family employees. Maybe at a later date, there might be 1 or 2, I can't remember whether we was within the zoning ordinance, but basically, the only traffic that would be coming would be about 1 40-foot truck per week. There's no retail sales. So it's just, we feel that the regular driveway that's there now is adequate, and it would be a great cost to pay that. So that's our first waiver request. Similar to that is the driveway width. There's plenty of, it's only wide enough for 1 vehicle, but there's grass on either side you can pull off. If there happened to be, it would be very rare there'd be 2 vehicles at the same time.
What is the current width?
Sorry?
What is the current width?
Current width would be, I'm guessing, I don't have that on the plan, but 12 feet? I'm guessing, is that up? Part of the driveway? Yeah. So we're requesting a waiver for that, and also for the section 22-615 3C for the driveway entrance. There, it's actually quite wide, 36 feet. And again, it's because there's minimal traffic, limited deliveries, no retail sales, no non-resident employees. And given the rural nature of the location, we're also requesting that the existing driveway to remain in the existing condition without the need of a median divider or curb.
Is there a floodplain, I can't see this, is there a floodplain on, at the bottom, like where the driveway is? Yes. So if you, so you're saying they can pull up in the grass area, but if it's in the floodplain, I mean, if it's mucky, are they gonna be able to do that? I mean, you're talking about a 40-foot truck
Yeah, but,
driving.
yeah, that's correct, but, you know, a smaller vehicle would pull up to the side, but again, I doubt that would ever happen. It's not be hardly any traffic.
Can you
And you
see,
can see each other, you can see the whole length of the driveway. Yes, sir.
there's not trees in between where the turn is, where the shared part is?
There's a few trees after the dent. So right here, there are some trees. But the rest of the way, I guess your question is, if a truck is pulling in there,
Can you see it from
can you see there at the top? Does that make sense? If a car is pulling in here, or in this area, will they be able to see that driveway? So during the winter time, you can, but not during the summer, apparently, because they're leaves. So,
Okay, so you busier in the winter than you are in the summer? It's all same?
again, we're talking about one vehicle a week.
I was gonna say, what if you put just a little stone pad about halfway down, so you could do a bypass if somebody came in, but if you're talking one vehicle a week, I'm not sure it's worse than.
We can put a note on the plans that it goes along with the need for actually designated parking up there, the way the zoning ordinance is written. You need parking spaces if you have retail sales or non-resident employees, which he doesn't have either. So for the zoning ordinance, no, it's completely defined. Parking spaces are required up there. For a discussion was to add a note to the plan for that aspect, that if there's a change in presence or absence of retail sales and or non-resident employees, that parking would then need to be provided. For the zoning ordinance, you could add a similar note if you were inclined to grant the waiver. It could be conditioned on if there's a change in intensity of usage, you know, or the amount of truck traffic or something there, that designated cool-off be provided.
And the variance was granted for him to have non-resident employees, right?
No, the variance was related to impervious coverage and the size of the building. His reference to non-resident employees was that they would, if in the future there were non-resident employees, it would have to comply with whatever the rural occupation regulations for that size lot.
So he didn't get relief for that?
No,
Okay.
we're not requesting.
No,
So everybody that works, is gonna work there, is gonna live at that property? For-
I think that perfectly makes sense to, if the intensity of the traffic increases, that there be, and we can have that note.
You okay with that?
So the next waiver request is section 22, 617, and 1L, and then also 1O, regarding the paving of parking or access areas. Again, for the same reasons as before. We're also requesting whether the parking area not be paved. And then section 22, 617, 3B, traffic circulation. Again, for the same previous reasons, we're also requesting a waiver from that.
Can you show me where your delivery truck parking, where that would be? I know it's mentioned somewhere in the letter.
Well,
It's not legal yet,
it's
it's
not
been
available.
anticipated.
Oops, I got it. So the driveway comes in here. There's already, yeah, so the extra driveway with all this access.
Yeah, all that, like, gravel, so you said you anticipated the loading door being towards like the end of the building
Yeah.
here, so they would come in, and then they'll have to provide truck turning templates that it can, you know, back out without hitting the.
This is all gravel area here.
Yes.
Yeah, so you just, they can turn it back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On that note, they are required for the rural occupation as a zoning requirement to pave the first 30 feet of the driveway when off the road. So that, regardless of any waiver regarding driveway paving or the circulation area, that 30 foot has to be paved.
And this one, but on the exit. And then the last land development related waiver would be placement of monuments. So we're not proposing a subdivision or modification of any of the lot lines. And so we're requesting also that a waiver for the placement of monuments, serving monuments.
But all the property corners are pinned.
I don't think so. Do we have property pins on that? Oh, there are, yes, there are property
Yeah, they're not legal on the plan, so.
pins. They can not trust,
Yeah, so any, you know, if any were found or located, that should just be legal.
Yeah.
Those are. So I guess the question to the planning commission would be for that waiver, for anywhere that there's not currently a pin, you know, or a monument on a corner or change in direction. Does the planning commission feel that there's a need to put those in at this time?
And then the, from the stormwater management ordinance, section 20-311-3A, you have, according to the ordinance, I think the minimum size of a pipe is 12 inches, and so according to our design, an 8-inch pipe will, and the swell would be sufficient, so we're also requesting a waiver for that. I mean, that pipe meets all the other requirements, that size standard pipe.
Where is that?
The yard and the driveway to the north of the building,
Yeah.
going out to the flood-in section.
Okay. And needs capacity.
Yeah, his proposed waiver letter, you know, the proposed flows within the pipe, I believe, are 0.6 CFS, for the swale at 0.4 CFS. Swale requires a minimum 7-line slope of 2% and 4 to 1 side slopes for residential areas. They're proposing 3 to 1 side slopes and a 1% 7-line slope on there.
And what? And that's. What's that, grass?
I didn't know the plans, but,
I'm just curious.
they'll be matting, I would assume. Yeah, there's a lining, yeah,
Looks like it's a short swale just on like one side of the building.
there's the NAG 575 line, so that,
And more so, if it was in like a larger scale development or something, you know, we'd be looking for two, so they drainage it. Given the low flow, you know, and it's, you know, private there for him, so it's not really going to have an impact on anybody else.
So there's no pipe running into it, it's just a little bit of land? Is that what I'm reading here?
Yeah, it appears just to capture it in that area between that existing barn and the proposed shop area. Just to create a little swell there so the flow gets beyond the shop building.
Just about 1% of grass. It is short.
It is, so it's like a 50-foot long
Yes, it's-
swale along there. So with regard to the review letter, one was issued on Monday, the 22nd. It had contained a few comments regarding zoning over the soil, the underlying soils going back to, we had a few of these variance or special exception applications a little while ago where the township has soil-based floodplain areas, not just the FEMA floodplain areas. So it was identified that a portion of this building was on alluvial soils based upon the wet soil survey. They did have this week, as a result of that letter, a soil analysis and wetland delineation done, confirmed that the boundary of those alluvial soils is to the east of the proposed building, closer to the stream, Lion Pond, and that area over there. So that took those zoning comments out. And he had refined that waiver request letter today. So I did issue an updated review letter dated April 25th that took out those zoning related comments related to the soils, to clean it up and to reflect this specific waiver request with the driveway design and the clarification of the need for parking. So, if you...
I have another question.
Yeah,
So, the power room, diesel generator, is that gonna be screened at all? And I know there's been issues with Telehai before, not from your property, but from further up from the generator, they used to run the big slide. I don't know, if along tree line, that's pretty open there, isn't it?
those are a lot of trees
A lot of
behind
trees.
that, yeah, between the town line.
there's a tree line running through here. So I'm assuming, see that, so all of this
Trees.
is woods, so that will get carved back. But this is a minor land development plan, so again, landscape is at the discretion of the planning commission, so if you do feel that there's any aspect of it that would need landscaping, he does show the existing woods lines on the plans.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the winter, will you be able to see that building from that road at Telehai when there's no leaves and stuff on the trees?
It's about 200 feet in between them. And it's all wood.
Things down, is it evergreens, what type of trees?
There is a couple, I think, on the high side.
Yeah.
On my side of the building, on their side.
Well, my question was for the winters.
Well, for kind of a, you know, evergreen screening might be provide a little noise.
So you're thinking around just the diesel room itself, or are you also looking for visual?
Is it one-story building? So your ceiling height in the first floor would be 10 feet? 14. Then A roof or gambrel? A roof. So, 22 feet high. I can't picture how much is in there. So.
You bring up the aerial?
How about a
How would you feel about put some evergreens in there to try and soften the view, maybe soften the sound?
For the diesel room or for the building?
If you don't come here,
1225 Beaver Dam. This is
So
the
it's
existing
right
driveway
there.
coming in here. Yeah, it's up in this area, so a little bit of these trees is coming out.
So this existing apartments, is that the old, the daycare building?
This is the daycare building,
But
right here.
is that,
This is Cherry Drive. That existing apartment one, that's Cherry Drive.
this one?
Yes, the one you're pointing to is one of the four from Cherry Drive. They replaced, that land development plan came in many weeks ago,
Yeah.
and there were two of the four buildings there have been replaced.
This one and that one.
Right. But the other two haven't been replaced yet, so there's units here, and then the daycare building are the closest buildings in proximity.
Is there also a walking trail along that road there?
No, I think it's just the squirreliness of the road. I don't think, no, I think that's just the road itself. I don't think there's a
Is there a
walk.
walking trail down by the daycare?
Down by the
The old
daycare,
daycare?
on the other side of,
Like along
Yeah, on
Tree
the
Line
other
Drive,
yeah.
there is a walking trail there? I couldn't.
On, what would be his side? On the west side of Tree Line?
No, not
It's
on
on,
that
it's on
side.
the east side?
Yeah, here it is,
Okay.
yeah, I see it here.
Yeah, there's
There's
a
a
little,
trail
a little
park.
bridge here or something.
Yeah, yeah. So that's zoomed in kind of close to,
Here's what it is.
yeah, the building's coming off of this existing concrete area,
Correct.
and it's removing a bit of the edge of driveway there, tree line.
So some of those trees are gonna go away?
Yeah.
I think it should be.
I see how many, the building, the side width of the building, like the edge of that faces Beaver Dam is 50 feet wide, 50 by 100 buildings. So how many evergreens are you thinking?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. 10 feet. And that's gonna be a long one.
How noisy really is that generator?
It's gonna be encased in block wood.
Oh, it's inside, so it's just exhaust?
Yeah.
We're gonna baffle,
You're gonna baffle it? And maybe, then maybe the sound isn't a concern.
so my thing is, we're gonna plant a bunch of trees in the woods there, right on the road.
not concerned about sound.
Okay.
So even with taking down trees, you're saying there's still gonna be a significant amount of trees between the
Yeah,
building
and
and
on the area of the office, so.
On my side is because the morning sun won't get on it.
Yeah, so from High's property line inward to probably what is the back side, where's the lake today? It's just in my existing road. To what would be the back side of the rural occupation building is probably about 165 feet. And then from that property line to the edge of tree line, the property line to kind of the closest edge of tree line drive itself is about another 40-ish feet. So we're talking about 200 feet from the edge of road, edge of tree line drive closest to his property to the back side of that building.
So for the zoning relief, was Telhai would have been notified, right?
Yeah.
Correct, that's adjacent property.
So did they make a presence at their zoning hearing?
I don't believe there was any objections or anything to that.
Okay, so what do you thought? We're only gonna get a little bit of, actually, I'm probably gonna get that. A little bit of southern, it won't get east, it won't get west. Just a little bit different. Middle of the day, but
I'm fine with it. Any more trees there?
okay. Sounds like we're okay with the forest that's there.
Okay, thank you.
So, I was just gonna touch on the balance of the review letter with a couple comments we discussed being clarified on the soils and the parking, under zoning, as I mentioned, having them add that note about if there's a change in the employees of retail sales in the future, we would need to address parking at that time. They will need to show the truck circulation plan to us, pave that first 30 feet, and address any requirements of the Chester County Health Department for that there. From the Saldo standpoint, we talked about the waiver request regarding the parking and circulation in the driveway. That's the bulk of their comments, is to show water and sewer connections depending on what's required by the health department. And we talked about landscaping. For stormwater, they did comply with the peak rate runoff, infiltration, those requirements. I believe one of the primary issues was the size of the pipe in the swale, which they've asked for the waiver for, showing that what is designed is sufficient size-wise, it just doesn't meet our general requirements. They'll need to do the standard stormwater operations and maintenance agreement and add those notes to the plans, but that's the premise of the letter. If you guys have any other questions on this proposed development or these requested waivers?
I have a question about the shared driveway. Is that just shared with one other home? And, I'm sorry?
There is a home up there, but yes, it's one shared with one land.
Oh, okay. And so Jen, they would be aware, I mean, are they okay with what's the truck
Well,
traffic and?
One of our requirements is that whenever we have shared driveways, like even in this case, it's existing, they've been sharing it forever, If there's not an actual recorded maintenance agreement in place, like even if there's just an access easement but not a maintenance agreement, whenever we have an opportunity such as this, it's a township requirement to have a maintenance agreement executed so that down the road, property sale and change hands. So they would be aware, made aware through that process
And that would happen
You know,
before the plans.
that this is going, before the plans can be recorded, they'll need to have that shared driveway agreement recorded. And that property owner would have also been made aware of this development as part of that zoning hearing process. Because they're in Georgia.
Right, but then they would, how would they know that we were gonna grant waivers for like, you know, width or, I'm just,
That's a big problem.
They would have to attend. well, they would have, we haven't granted those waivers yet, right? So they would have to come.
I mean, you could
If we
grant
grant the
those-
waivers now, how would they know that, how would we know if they were okay with that or not?
The private insurance is in here, if they weren't okay with what he's doing.
Yeah, part
This wasn't
You
part
had a
of,
discussion with them?
I mean, you can always condition it, your waivers on the provision of a letter from the adjoining property owner, you know, that they're agreeable to the existing,
yeah,
width, and like I said, they'll have to sign that, shared maintenance agreement. So at that time, they could also discuss amongst themselves if there was changes they wanted. But that shared maintenance agreement will establish, who's responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of that shared section, things like snow plowing. If it gets ruts in it, the paving deteriorates or something like that. That'll all outline between those two property owners, who's responsible for what.
okay.
Is that Gideon's property? Or that's his son's?
Packet some.
Yeah, it's
Some.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Meeting to be the one to be okay.
yeah, just the requirement is they're supposed to widen it, or if we grant the waiver that they don't have to widen it, and the other property owner says, hey, why'd you, I'm not okay with them not widening it.
But the other members would need to sign the agreement.
You don't need to sign the agreement, but you could, if you wanted to, you could condition your recommendation for granting of the waiver of them providing, a letter or a statement from that adjoining owner indicating that they were acceptable to that, and we could ask them to provide that ahead of the board meeting, before the waiver was formally granted.
I think it's, says something to get that confirmation
Yeah.
rather than just, they're okay with it, I think.
Yeah, you could put that in your, when a motion's made.
Doesn't the maintenance agreement itself pretty much?
Not necessarily, because the maintenance agreement isn't gonna address the fact that we are granting a waiver to not do what they're supposed to do, or the
It-
requirement
I guess
is to
it's not
widen it, to
making-
pave it, to do all this.
It's not making that other owner aware that the township technically could require it
Well, that's-
to be,
That's what, if you make it in that maintenance agreement, that it says that if there's a change in the operations, it's gonna be that way.
Right.
Is the maintenance agreement, has it been prepared and signed?
No, it hasn't.
Why can't you add that wording into the maintenance agreement?
Yeah, and what I would say, we're not asking for a waiver for the maintenance agreement, and it's a
Right.
requirement, we're gonna follow through with it. If the adjacent landowner wants
it widens,
a
whatever.
why, in order for him to sign it, he's got all the power, so.
Right.
I think I appreciate your point of view, but, we can make that very clear in the agreement, that there is a waiver for the driveway width and these
Yeah.
other items, but
Mhm.
if he's not in favor, then we would sign it.
Right, okay,
Okay, is that good?
yeah.
Okay.
One other question.
Yes.
Is the sliding board still up? Still a sliding board? It's not there.
That's on my name.
I know, but is it there?
He's there.
There's a reason for my Well, I'm asking.
Not this way.
No, they used to have like, I don't know if they were church groups or retreats or whatever with you know, fair amount of people there, maybe 20, 30. And the traffic said there was only like one vehicle a day coming into yours. Is there times where there's a lot going into theirs?
Sometimes there's some.
But they'd be horses and wagons, right? Or maybe some vans. I just wondered if they still have that group, because it would add some traffic to what's there. But back to that comment, I think if you,
And it's usually on the weekends, I guess, or?
honestly, I don't remember. So it's going to be addressed in the maintenance agreement.
That they were granted waivers to not, if we granted waivers to not extend it,
Yeah, he's not widen it or require
yeah.
the shared portion to be.
Any other questions from Dan or the applicant? If you're willing to, we can take all these together, all the waivers together, and that's listed on the T-MAG letter dated April 25th. Assuming that everyone is okay with the same direction for the waivers? You okay with
Yeah,
that?
I'm fine.
All right, and what I asked for is a waiver, or a motion and a second for the waivers as a recommendation to the board of supervisors to grant the relief that is requested in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 waiver requests.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Are there any questions? Before we take the vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Takes care of waivers. Is there anything else on the plans and the review letter? If there are no further questions on the review letter and plans, what they're looking for is a recommendation for final land development approval.
And that would be
Conditional on
April 25th order.
any additional comments that you added.
The April 25th letter is our updated review letter, the original
Or
one.
there are a couple things you added as notes?
The waiver, I mean, the maintenance agreement.
Yeah, that,
Regarding the intensity and the parking, those are already incorporated in the April 25th.
oh, okay, all
I
right.
updated it today from the original letter on the 22nd.
All right. So then the request would be for motion and second to recommend final land development plan approval to the supervisors.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
The last land subdivision is Queen County Business Park, final subdivision land development submission.
Okay.
You gotta make Tony go through it.
Won't be that meeting. Mike Cowan from Commonwealth Health, he's been out of the office sick. So he sent home on Zoom. The layout, this was granted conditional preliminary plan approval No, I didn't put it in the letter. I think the end of last year, sometime, maybe the beginning of this year. This is the extension of Westbrook Drive from the existing cul-de-sac out to Route 10, creation of 7 new industrial zone lots. Development on 6 of the 7 lots is proposed. They've been working with PennDOT on their PennDOT permit, and it appears it's still going to stay a right in and left and right out. They did get through to PennDOT that they will allow both maneuvers, leaving Westbrook Drive, but we will not be able to make a left in from Route 10 into Westbrook Drive, going north on Route 10.
I'm surprised they got left out.
Yep, they have it, they sent me the last PennDOT review letter, and there wasn't any real clear, anything on there, so.
Tell me, what kind of barriers are you gonna have there with, like, the pork chop and to make sure that people aren't cheating and making that left in?
Yeah, Mike would know a lot more detail than I would, but I believe that we're gonna do the pork chop barriers that are corrugated and stuff, and really trying to direct traffic exactly where they need to go. Kind of trying to make it idiot proof.
You know, my concern is somebody's gonna sit there to go in and the sight distance coming up over the hill isn't great.
And I'm not sure on the actual elevation of the pork chops, if it's gonna be curved or roll curve or what, but Mike would have.
I wonder if they can also put those, like, reflector,
Yeah.
Tubes.
I don't know what they're called. The, like, reflector things that go around, they may be able to put those in that pork chop. To really prevent you from driving over it, which is your primary concern. So ultimately, looking at their review letter, what was left over from the preliminary plans, zoning, I was talking with Mike Cowan earlier with adjusting the radii on those the proposed individual driveway entrances, so the trucks coming in and out can more easily make those turns from the correct travel lanes on the roadway and not be crossing over. There's a couple other areas of the street itself that appear to be dark. The parking lots on the individual lots and at the driveway entrance for the individual lots looked well lit. But I was asked them to make sure it's lit down at the intersection of 10 and Westbrook Drive, as well as when you're coming in off that existing cul-de-sac to the new curve, that works in there.
Is that all industrial? Is that all industrial?
Yes, it's also in business industrial, yeah. So, they're the only 2 zoning comments hanging out there. Is there any questions on those before I go on to Saldo? With regard to Saldo, they did submit the comment number 1, which is about making sure we got that formal application copy, which we did get that since the letter was issued. Comment 2 is just relating to, this is currently a lot that's used in ag. It's kind of a residual leftover piece that may become future industrial down the road. We just want to ensure that it does have access to sewer. It may need to just add an easement through there. They'll have to work with the water authority to show the minimum water pressure, ensure the final traffic impact study comments are addressed. Part of that ties into getting their PennDOT permit and finalizing things with PennDOT. We talked about the street lights.
Back to the water, is it just PSI or is there flow requirements?
I don't know that there's flow requirements in our ordinance. any other requirements for flows. With regard to the landscaping plan, so their original submission had some deficiencies shown in the calculations, that they weren't providing enough trees to address all of the required counts based upon building area and different criteria, but they were still showing a pile of trees for woodland replacement, which they didn't actually need because their woodland replacement, their woodland disturbance is below the threshold for Class 3 woodlands where the basin's going. And then they also had concerns that they had to provide all of those specific trees, you know, for building area and the parking lot and things like that on that specific property. But we discussed that they could be spread around the entire development where it fits best. Particularly down on Lot 4, which is the one closest to Route 10, has the stormwater basin proposed on it, but it doesn't currently have a building or site development on it, and they're providing a lot of landscaping in and around that stormwater basin to help with water management. So in adjusting their calculations around, we got an updated waiver request letter today. So they can overall come very close to meeting our required planting standards, and that included everything from street frontage to the property boundaries, buffers next to the existing residential use up on Route 10, the parking lots, the buildings. They are looking for, they kind of have an overage of deciduous and ornamental, deciduous and ornamental trees over the required number of evergreen trees. So they're looking to allow shade trees to be counted in lieu of evergreen trees at a ratio of 1 shade tree for every 2 evergreens that would be required. The shade trees are the larger deciduous ones. And then 1 ornamental deciduous tree, which are kind of small, more decorative trees, on a 1-to-1 ratio for an evergreen tree. And that's not overall, that's just for a certain, a select number of them. I don't think I have the exact number on top of my head, I can see if,
You just don't want every tree.
but I think they thought that particularly the basin, the shade trees were a better fit there, and just where they were planting things, they thought the shade trees and the ornamentals, were better, but
I mean, I guess I want to know, we're talking 1-to-2 ratio, how many are we talking? Are we talking 10 trees, 20 trees? Because they have, it's a large property, I'm sure the trees can be planted somewhere.
right, let me see if I can find her.
Be interested to know how many trees short they're going to be with that ratio.
What she said here.
Um.
So it was, apparently they were 54 evergreen trees short, overall total, across the property. So they were looking to, and I don't know what the exact breakdown is of how many shade trees they would give for 2 evergreens and how many ornamentals. But it's a total of 54 evergreen trees that would be substituted at the ratios.
Of either 1-to-1 or 1-to-2?
Yes.
And anywhere where evergreens can go for screening, that's still on.
Yeah, I think wherever, I think the layout that you're seeing on the plans now is the layout that would be maintained from a landscaping perspective. So they had it quantity-wise, of enough trees nearly to meet all the requirements in full, except for that 54 evergreen trees. They would be short, but they do have, like I said, overage of deciduous trees that they want
or not, it's all industrial, I think it would be different if it were buffering a residence.
Where they need to buffer that residence up along Route 10 is done, again, between trees as necessary. Where that required buffer was.
Not seeing
Here's a plan schedule.
They don't have an overall legend. So there's the work, there's the house right there.
Yeah, so like this lot, this is shown on the landscaping plan on lot 4 with the basements, but that isn't actually proposed development. At this point.
JV is 27. Here is 68. Reverse.
So even if they went 2 to 1, they would be 27 short.
Correct.
at
If they
this.
replace them all at 1 to 2.
Right, which hopefully isn't going to be the case, but that's the worst case scenario.
That would be the worst case scenario, so we can specify, because, yeah, just looking at that house there, I thought there was
The
more
south side of the house is,
landscaping.
there's
on that
nothing,
south
that's
side.
where they should go.
Yeah, I thought,
The little house is right on the entrance.
Yeah.
but,
There's really no screening from what would be
From
lot
this
4.
one?
Yeah,
There's no screen here.
yeah, there's no screening there. You know where we're talking?
I do.
but, so they could add a few more.
Definitely.
Yeah, in there, so
Here.
on that landscaping plan, just for clarity, that proposed line work that they showed for parking in a building on lot 4 is not proposed under this plan. I think she put a typical scenario on the landscaping plan to make sure the stormwater landscaping didn't interfere with it, but lot 4 is not proposed to be developed under this plan. So the street landscaping that's on there and everything that's in the back associated with the basin would be put on there. But there's not an actual proposed building.
So none of those trees are in the counts?
All the trees shown on lot 4 are in the counts and will go in.
Okay.
There's just not that actual building footprint that's shown there. That building is not proposed under this plan. I think she just had it in there as a reference for where she was putting.
But it would make
There
sense
should
to
be
screen
something.
that at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for screening on
Okay,
the
so-
south side of that house.
So they could provide, so that waiver could be a partial waiver to allow substitutions.
I don't know if you get 54 trees in there.
No, for the trees beyond, a substantial buffer needs to be provided along the southern side of that home. And then whatever evergreen trees are left, those substitution ratios would be permissible.
Right.
So, okay, and at a maximum of 54
Right.
evergreen trees, okay.
Keeping outside distance.
Yeah, all right.
Other than that, the landscaping, it's
Yeah, other than that, I mean, it's pretty spaced out, it's away from the underground utilities, it's out of the clear site triangles at the individual driveway entrances. They did have like a landscape architect do it. So That landscaping waiver request is the only additional waiver request. The other ones listed in their letter, they were just redoing the ones that were doing it under preliminary plan approval. And then stormwater ordinance, overall, they have several on-lot facilities that work to treat infiltration and water quality, and then everything ultimately ends up at that basin down on lot 4, near Route 10. Their calculations are showing that they're meeting all the peak rate runoff comments. There's just a couple minor inconsistencies which shouldn't impact the overall design, but I did list them in the letter for them to fix it before we clearly say everything's met. They have gone through the NPDS review process. They don't have their NPDS permit yet, but we've seen the latest review letters, and there's nothing substantial in that letter that's going to result in a complete redesign of the facilities. We do need to review their storm sewer, calculations. They can make adjustments to pipe sizes if necessary, but they give a substantial stormwater network through the road there. General comments, just a couple minor drafting items at the top, under number 1. Then number 2 are the standard items that must be addressed prior to recording of the plan, such as the improvements agreement, financial security, water and sewer authority approvals, the NPDS permit, planning module, PennDOT, and the draft deeds for the resultant lots and things like that. So.
Any questions for Jen?
So if you guys are inclined at this point, they would look for action on that one additional waiver request regarding the landscaping, and if you were inclined to do a conditional final plan approval.
What's this section? What section is the landscaping?
Section 22, 629.5.
So these are the 3 waivers we're taking action on?
Just this one
Just that one.
tonight, these at the top of the backside, and these are the ones that were granted in June of 2023 for under preliminary plan. So the waiver request would be to grant a partial waiver, a recommendation to the board to grant a partial waiver from section 629.5 of the Saldo to allow for the 54 deficient evergreen trees, to allow them to be substituted with shade trees at a 1-to-2 ratio, an ornamental at a 1-to-1 ratio, provided that an evergreen buffer is provided along the southern side of that house that's adjacent to Lot 4 and Route 10.
You're okay with what Jen said? I'm making a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second.
Any further questions and comments? Okay, so the motion is to recommend partial waiver for that section of the Saldo regarding landscaping. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, are there any questions, further questions on the subdivision plan? If there are not, I believe the request is for a recommendation to the supervisors for final plan approval, subject to the April 19th, 2024 Technicon review letter.
I'll make a motion.
Motion, second. Go second. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next item, under zoning hearing and conditional use applications, this is for Mr. Biddle. You didn't fall asleep on us, did you?
No, sir. This is a
So, Mr. Biddle's application is for a special exception to operate a limited impact home occupation for his landscaping business 5 Foxview Road. A little over a 2-acre property. He does have 2 F-250 trucks and 2 smaller landscaping trailers. Neither of those vehicles meets the definition of a commercial vehicle in our ordinance. So he appears to be in compliance with the zoning regulations for home occupations. The only one I did want to ask you about, there is limitations on the hours for limited impact home occupation, including like people coming to the site for picking up vehicles or anything like that, that can't start before 7 a.m. and it can't be after 8 p.m. I was just making sure you could comply with that, otherwise you may want to add that waiver request to, variance request to your application, but if you operate between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m., then you're fine. So, you have a copy of his application for both the special exception and his limited. I'm assuming Christie also put the limited impact home occupation application in there. So if you have any questions about his business, I would suggest you can ask Mr. Biddle.
Will you store things outside, like mulch
I
or?
have a, sorry, just one second. That's a letter from the property owner,
Okay.
my wife.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we just wanted to
You also
have that witness.
Maybe copies for me, they said.
Ah, okay.
For that.
Yeah, got it.
Ma'am, what was your question? Sorry.
Will you, like, you have 2 trucks there, will you
Yeah.
store, like,
They stay outside parts of the right side of the
will you
old
store mulch or,
No.
or any type of?
one. No. I don't have any deliveries there, I have no signs, I have no customers that come there,
Okay.
you
Do
know.
you have employees in there?
I have one employee that comes and picks up a truck and leaves.
Do you leave your equipment in like a
It's a
trailer
pole
or
barn.
something?
It's a
Oh,
pole
pole
barn. Yeah. It's a pre-existing pole barn that was built years
Your neighbors know you want to do that?
ago. What's that?
Do your neighbors know you want to do this?
Yeah, I help most of my neighbors out, most of them are elderly. and,
So nobody's opposing you?
Not that I know of.
You have a list of, I assume these are the neighbors.
Yes. Within 500 feet
Yeah, that'll
on
all,
my street, or within 200 feet behind me.
they will all
What's
get,
that?
I know Corey Woodfield.
they will all get notification of the hearing for the
I
zoning.
think it's issue.
Hearing requirements and, you know, the copy will be posted as usual once a hearing date is set.
And I have existing screening all the way around my property. My father, we bought my father-in-law's house. He planted millions of trees, too many trees.
You can barely see your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suggest as part of your zoning hearing, maybe you want to print, I know you drew it, with all the trees, but maybe you want to print an aerial from Google Earth or Chesco Views.
There was one.
Oh, is there one in there too?
There should be an aerial from, I believe it was Google Earth.
Okay, got it.
You can't see anything, because it's all streets,
Right,
but yeah.
so, so as reminded to the PC and for the audience benefits, usually when a zoning hearing or conditional use applications come before the planning commission, they look to the planning commission and subsequently the board of supervisors to take a position of either support, against, or no position on the application. And once the board takes their position, then we issue a letter to the zoning hearing board solicitor advising him of the township's position on the various applications. So, if you have any other questions for him,
So if someone want to make a motion for one of those 3 options?
I will make a recommendation support.
A motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor of recommending to the zoning hearing board to support the request? Say aye. Any opposed?
that's Troy and Melissa, correct?
That's correct. Okay.
Okay.
Good luck with the zoning hearing board.
It'll that'll be discussed at the May Board of Supervisors meeting. I think Christie sent you a letter today with the dates, I think it's the 8th.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then you'll get a notice as soon as they set the actual zoning hearing date as well. All right?
am I okay to go? I gotta get over.
You're good, yeah, thank
You're
you.
Thank you.
Sorry to
How you
hold
doing?
you so long.
Thank you.
Good night.
Our last item under zoning hearing is Mr. Fisher at 991 Compass Road.
All right, so next door to the subdivision we talked about earlier, where Route 10 roadside market currently is, they are considering relocating. Okay, go good. All right. They're considering relocating the existing Route 10 roadside market to a property just to the south. There is currently an existing approximately 1.8 acre parcel that's not all the way to the corner of Cambridge and 10. It has a couple existing farm buildings on it. It's kind of shaded light yellow, I would think, or maybe it's just the light. On there, they're going to annex that lot with the one shown in purple, which is about a 6-point-something acre lot for a total of about 8.9 total acres. Want to construct a new building for Route 10 roadside market. Will be larger than the existing one. Provide better parking lot, also provide circulation and a defined loading area in there for that. They would need 2 variances. The existing Route 10 roadside market is kind of a hodgepodge, had conditional use, partial rural lot, as a dry goods store. It's kind of developed over the years to be, a little beyond that scope. To technically we would consider the principal use of it to be kind of retail sales grocery store. Our zoning ordinance does define a grocery store separate from retail sales. But the kind of almost best fits what the use is. And that would become the principal use of the lot. So they would be looking for a use variance to be able to establish the grocery store retail sales as the principal use of the lot. Additionally, within the agricultural zoning district, the minimum lot area is 10 acres, except if you're carving off those small 1 to 2 acre lots for houses. So they would need a variance for lot area to allow the principal use to be established on a combined lot that's between 8 and 9 acres, as opposed to the 10 gross. So, if you guys, that's kind of the generic of their variance request. We did note, again, like the other one for Mr. Ash, there are some soils in there that may be considered floodplain soils. They're going to look to have those analyzed ahead of the zoning hearing to make sure they don't need to add any additional variance requests related to the community-defined flood hazard area. They are outside of the riparian buffer. They're outside of any 100-year floodplain defined by FEMA. It's just that underlying soil condition. So they can speak to any questions you have about what they're proposing through there. We did make sure we talked, and they are showing kind of a loading area wrapping around the back side of that building. Kind of goes back to our conversations that we had months ago with Dollar General and a few of those other types of businesses about truck circulation being a key component there. Ultimately, if they're granted variances, they would need to go through the land development process. They would need a permit from PennDOT, for the access, do all the stormwater and all that. So this, at this stage, is really just focused on zoning variance to have the use and lot area itself. So, any,
Their truck traffic is not like Dollar General.
no,
They come around the building, they're not backing close parking.
correct, that's what, yeah. We have had like a pre-application meeting of kind of what direction this should head in, what the business should be classified as, and it really is kind of beyond the scope of a role occupation scale, so kind of thought it was best to go for the use variance there, so.
Same driveway location? Is the entrance moving?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's moving slightly, and with the intensity of use, it's gonna need to be accepted by PennDOT. Anyway, but, Mr. Fisher's here and his engineers, so if you guys have any specific questions, on the proposal plan, thoughts, scale of the business, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer those for you.
So the current store is about 4,500 square feet, correct?
That's the footprint of the store, and then there's two stories to that building. The second story is not quite as big. And then he does use a little bit of the nearby barn for storage.
And the retail, so the retail floor area is about 2,200 square feet.
Of the existing one.
That's what I read.
Okay.
And the building you're proposing is 7,200 square feet? How much of that would be the retail store?
How much is it?
You have that on the screen?
I don't have that on there.
I think it's like 70 or 75 by 45 or something like
Does it-
So the whole thing would be the
that.
retail
Like
store?
half of it would be retail probably.
Half of it? What would the other half?
Warehouse.
Storage? And this is ag zoning, which grocery stores are not allowed in ag zoning, correct, Jen?
Correct, neither retail sales or the grocery store is permitted as a principal use in ag.
Yeah, the existing market was allowed as a conditional use back in the early 90s when it was an industrial, and it was described as a dry goods store. Since then, they sell some produce and some other things. They sell products from other farms as well, so it doesn't really fit quite.
Yeah, I've been in there,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
groceries, and it's a grocery store.
Yeah,
So if the township allows a grocery store in ag zoning, what type of a precedent does that set for everybody else who's so bad?
Well, I'd say if they fit it as focused truly on the, like, community, small level nature of it, you know, 'cause it's also in part kind of like a local farmer's market, you know, two with accessory things.
What was the zoning when you first looked it up?
industrial.
Industrial. So the zoning had changed on it too, so it wasn't required to.
Right, well, that's the existing market, so that's kind of irrelevant in terms of what they're trying to do in ag zoning. Right, but it's not, it's ag and it's farmland, and it's not 10 acres. So, it's in mixed use, commercial right up the street, almost all that sketch plan, that was from Wolf Green. I would have a hard time supporting a grocery store going into ag zoning. I think it sets a precedent that much of our township is ag zoning. If you start allowing people to do things like a grocery store, I think you're setting a precedent that's a little dangerous.
I think one thing, in my opinion, makes this a little unique than other ones is that there's already an existing grocery store and it's just relocating it.
Relocating it, it's expanding
It's
it.
expanding, correct, a little bit, yeah.
It can stay there, doesn't have
Right, it's either, it's an existing non-conformity, so you could expand it by a certain percentage. Right.
Let me, now, I'll look up what zoning districts grocery stores are permitted in now.
I know it's mixed use commercial.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there's any others that
Yeah.
permitted in, so.
You don't have square footage, what determines a grocery store.
No,
Now, the
unfortunately,
grocery
there's
store definition is, well, he's got it in his summary here. This is when we were looking at retail versus other, so typically it doesn't fit into, a rural occupation allows things like bakeries and a dry goods store, but it would be over the size, it would be over the number of employees, it would also be over the number of, percentage for retail sales. Through there, the grocery store definition is a retail use whose merchandise sales of consumable, fresh foods, prepared foods, and dry food ingredients total 80% or more of the store's gross annual sales. So that it fits more grocery store than generic retail sales. The Ag District does allow display and sale of farm or nursery products. Again, it's beyond, the scope of that. So just looking at where, just look up where grocery store is permitted for you. So grocery stores are permitted in business industrial. It is permitted in mixed-use commercial, as Aaron said.
Is it dry goods and grocery store, is that a different category altogether?
So, let me see if we have the definitions still on.
Yeah, and I said in there too, I agree that it fits the definition of the grocery store. Unfortunately, it's not like a giant or a white or something like that, right? As far as impacts the community, it seems like it'd be closer to a dry goods or a bakery or
We do a lot of
Designated separate.
farm-raised products. It's more, almost more of a farmer's market type thing.
You sell a lot of meats there too.
What's that?
You sell a lot of meats there too?
We don't do a lot of meats,
No.
processed meats, but not a lot. But we do a lot of vegetables, produce.
Right, so dry goods store itself isn't a defined principal use. I do think it is listed under, looking under the, for a rural occupation, things that are permitted as a rural occupation, a butcher shop, bakery, a dry goods store, or things like that. This kind of goes. And then accessory tag would be like farm stands, and things like that. This is kind of 4 or 5 of those melded together.
When does it stop being a dry goods store, start being grocery store? When it has milk products, or is it, that's no kind
I think it's the scale of it. So the rural occupations have a limitation on the size of the building, the number of employees, the percentage of the space that can be used for retail, that it didn't meet. If you tried to classify it as a rural occupation, as dry goods store or something like that, they would need a whole multitude of variances from all of the rural occupation requirements. So in the same regard that you're looking at precedent with the grocery store, you'd be looking at basically a variance from every rural occupation requirement there is because of the scale of this. So it really didn't fit in the rural occupation category because it couldn't meet all the supplemental use regulations for rural occupations either.
4,500 square foot building with additional top, he could, expand a couple thousand feet there. He'd rather not do that because you just approved the subdivision, right? So he's thinking about the next generation that's passing the farm on to his children. He'd rather not have the store on the farm property.
That's one of my main focuses, is to get it off of the farm track.
It's really close to the resident there, so that's a big part of why he's thinking of relocating it, but
I was kind of hoping that you would look at it like, it would be a big improvement, like for water and stuff like that. We don't have a good plan where we're at and stuff, and I think this too, overall would be a big improvement. And we would be, shutting down the old place.
yeah, so what we were looking at is, do we want to expand there with the parking lot's not real great, the driveways aren't real great, there's no place for the truck right now backs in off Route 10. So do we want to expand there?
Old patched up building.
Yeah, I don't disagree
Yeah.
that it would be an improvement, I just think it's a problem for the township to allow a grocery store in that zone. And it's not 10 acres, so you have two, and there's really no hardship, you're not being forced to leave the space that you're in, so what's to stop another store from coming in and saying, hey, you just allowed them, we want to put a Dollar General on farmland.
Well, if it was an existing lawfully non-conforming use that came in and said, we'd like to move it next door, that would be like a similar one, right? But if it's somebody that's coming in and new this, I want to put a Dollar General in the ag district, I think there's enough difference between that and this one that the board can say, you know what?
You can think that, but I just think it opens up,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it opens up the township to some potential issues.
I see your point, but again,
You just don't take.
Yeah, I'm fine with taking,
again, I would
Board's gonna do it.
I would ask you to look at this like being, it's a family operation. I just don't think it's fair to put me in the Dollar General or grocery store
oh, I
category.
was just using that as an example, but it could be, it could be any
The
grocery
zoning
store.
hearing board, when it comes to that time, does have the ability to put certain conditions on it such that, either the owner of the lot needs to operate the store, the size of the buildings, or a certain percentage has to come from, local produce. There are things like that the zoning hearing board does have the right to impose. So if you want to add anything to your position and you just have a concern over precedent or scale,
Can you
could.
get 10 acres if you took some of the, because you own the adjoining property, can you get 10 acres there?
That's where I live, the residence is a 1 acre property, all Cambridge that would be adjoining. I guess I was hoping that it wouldn't be a big deal if I had 9 acres versus 10. I really don't want to put that little residential lot on there, but I guess I could. I don't think it would make sense.
We're not the ones that make the decision.
Right.
So we're just recommending, sometimes they listen,
I understand.
sometimes they don't.
I personally don't have an issue with like he was already there operating, we were taking the drivers, so we're still doing it. I understand his point, and where does it die?
I think she understands her.
I understand.
I think she's
I-
just trying to say that, if we're okay with this and someone else came in and wants to do something similar, we have to be okay with that too. So I think that's.
Can I make a suggestion that we just take a position, no support, or, no position?
You're neutral, basically.
Just be neutral on that.
So,
Yeah.
Can you use some property on it?
okay, make a motion that will,
I'll
Take
make a
no
motion,
position.
we take no support.
Or
No position, no
position.
position, no position, yes.
Right.
okay, need a second,
So you can put it out.
a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Is there a couple other things to discuss tonight? I'm sorry.
Is anyone here?
The alluvial soils that you mentioned this morning, Jim, is maybe something to
Right, so that would also, in conjunction, we briefly mentioned it, but with their use, so they're definitely asking for the use in the lot area variance. If they were to find that those soils in that area are somewhat alluvial, would you be supportive and/or have no position and/or against if they amended their application to include certain waivers for construction within those alluvial soils?
They'll go out and do an analysis of the soils,
Yes.
because we seem to be seeing this a little bit more often, whereas the alluvial soils that are on the map, once they go out and do the soil testing, doesn't quite match the map.
Right. Yes, they found that. So just if it were to come up, kind of would you have issues? I mean, they would have to address, it's going to be permitted as a commercial building under the commercial building code, so they would have to provide all the necessary compaction testing and, you know, all that. Like I said, it's not a FEMA floodplain, it's the soil space. So would you have any opposition if they added any relief, or would you take no position on that as well? You don't have to take a formal motion because it's not formally on there, we just wanted to have your general feedback on that.
I'm not sure I have a problem with that. Chances are we're just gonna find out it's gonna be less than what's on the map.
And
It's just my opinion.
any other comments on that? Just do the due diligence. Okay. Lastly, if this was to go through zoning hearing, get their zoning approvals, when it goes to come in for land development, would you be inclined to consider this a minor land development versus a major? Again, a lot of the difference in the two, one's the landscaping being at your discretion versus you know, full compliance with the ordinance. Two is like full traffic study versus
Well, they're gonna do a traffic study
Limited.
for the HOP.
they'll have to do it, yeah, with that anyway. So really it's landscaping, whether it's a conditional, a combined preliminary final plan approval or separate, are kind of the key differences for developments of this nature. I think in the past, you generally considered these small, you know, single developments to be minors, but it's up to you guys what you would consider, just so.
I mean, I'm okay with minor, but I'm still gonna look for landscaping to match what, you know.
Right. Yeah, you'll definitely, this is one where they are building, it will have an impact, so you will be looking,
To get
you
to
know,
be
for
where it would be
landscaping, for
required under
screening.
major,
right, and things like that.
yeah.
Okay. So, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's our action items. We have no other business. Go to our open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak about anything? Okay. Below adjournment is the list of the upcoming meetings, and if there's nothing else, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you, everyone, for coming. Dave, appreciate you coming, Todd.
Yeah.
Troy.